Let me see.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry about that. I really apologize.
No
Yeah.
worries. No
How's it
worries.
going?
It's going good. How's it going for you?
It's going well. We're ready whenever you are to get started.
Okay. Let's start in about 15 seconds.
Sure.
All right. Good to go.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to 2325 Fitness. Today we have with us Chris Austin, who is a two-time NCAA volleyball champion. Now, one thing what really interests me about Chris is that he has post his volleyball career. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Chris, that you're not actively playing volleyball anymore, but you have actually taken your volleyball training, your athleticism, and everything into coaching other students. Is that right?
Yeah. So I actually do still have an active career, just not on the indoor side. So now I
Okay.
compete on the sand, and I do it in a little bit of a part-time fashion. So the majority of my time as it pertains to volleyball is spent like teaching adults, teaching youth, and expanding, even beyond that.
Awesome. So one thing I really wanted to know that why did you choose volleyball? I mean, I know that it's a growing sport. It's like in the Asian countries, it's a bigger sport. In the European countries, it's a really big sport. In the U.S., it's been growing over the past few years. So how did your journey start about being a child up to where you are right now?
Yeah, so for me, I had originally tried to get into sports around that early middle school level, and I found myself actually getting cut pretty consistently. So I had moved from Reno, Nevada, and moved back
Mhm.
to Las Vegas, where I originally kind of grew up. So I was born in Texas, moved quickly to Vegas after my parents split, and then moved to Reno for a short stint. And so when I moved back to Las Vegas in the seventh grade, I got asked by my English teacher, who happened to be the basketball coach at the middle school, if I would come after school and try out. And I'll never forget it. I went in, I shot 32 shots, and I ended up making two of them, and both of them were layups. So, needless to say, I didn't get chosen for the basketball team. And I remember that summer, I went to the park every day, and I was like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get ready. And I ended up trying out the next year in eighth grade, and I got cut from the team again. So for me, there never was this doubt that I was going to continue to push and continue to try. Like I was not a person who had this feeling of I should just quit and try something else, but really just tried to find where my niche was going to be. So I actually kept trying to play, recreational basketball in the summers heading into high school. And so instead of really pursuing the sports route, I ended up playing the drums my freshman year in high school.
Okay.
And I finally tried out for the freshman team of the high school and I made it. And as I was playing basketball that freshman year, there was a guy on my team named Eric Bowman, and he was going to these volleyball intramurals. And I had no idea at the time what volleyball was in the ninth grade. And he said, Chris, you should come to these intramurals. And I said, volleyball is not really a sport for me. I don't even really know how to play. And he said, I'll buy you lunch if you come to the intramurals one time. And so I took him up on that and I went. And in honesty, I wasn't very good and I didn't really like it. And he told me, no, you'll get the hang of it. Just you got to keep coming back. And I said, I don't want to come back. And he said, I'll buy you lunch for a week if you keep coming back. And I said, okay, then I'm going to come back, thinking like I would just take the lunch for a week, and I actually did start to get the hang of it. And from there, it was just upward improvement.
That's awesome. And what is your height, Chris? You're
Yeah, so I'm about 6'2".
6'2", right? So that's natural given your height in high school and stuff when you're peaking. Naturally, you're going to be like, hey, I want to go for basketball. But then the food, the lunch that kind of motivated you to, hey, give it a shot, something else. And surprisingly, like here you are, two-time NCAA champion, where it takes you. And this is where you wanted to. When was the moment that you decided that this is it? This is what I want to take it a little further than just recreational. I want to make a career out of it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it was my 10th grade year going into high school. I remember that summer I had played a little bit of volleyball, but was really starting to get the bug, like to the point where I wanted to play almost every day. And in Las Vegas, it was really challenging at the time to try to find volleyball in general every day, but especially any kind of good level volleyball.
Sure.
And I hadn't risen to a level, honestly, that was that great yet. So it's not like I was being invited to, the more upper echelon games in Las Vegas. So I was playing across town at this place called Shadow Ridge, which was a crosstown rival school. And I had gone to an open gym. And I remember there were these players there who were playing as juniors and seniors in the Las Vegas area. And they were some of the better players. And I had asked them like what their plan was for for moving forward to play. And honestly, none of them really had that direct of a plan. I think one of them was like, yeah, I'm going to try to play in college at this school. And one of them said, I'm going to go to junior college in California. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if there'd be a way that I could translate this and the academic goals into one and be able to get myself into school for volleyball. And like from that moment, I would say out loud, I'm pursuing playing Division I volleyball. Even when I wasn't at a level where I was anywhere near ready to play that, I started to say it out loud. And so that's where I started to build it into my head.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's what the mindset of again, you're a two-time champion. I'm going to keep emphasizing on that. That's what the mindset of a champion is. Yourself on that career, any sport, any athlete, like it was one of the things that I've been looking into, like the mindset of an athlete.
Yeah.
And vocalizing your actual goals plays a huge role. Now, with that transitioning to a mindset aspect, I know that volleyball takes a lot physically, like especially if you're playing at a D1 and the level that you are playing, you're jumping, you're moving, your core, there's a lot that goes into it. You're seeing at the same time, you have the coordination. What is the mindset of a two-time champion when it comes to health and fitness going into a game?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was really fortunate coming up to continue to run into environments where there were people who were better than me in the environment. That was like a really big deal. So I ended up being able to learn from guys. So the big time I'll highlight, and I give a lot of praise to my experience at Long Beach City College. There was a coach there named Randy Tutorp who really showed me the ropes of how to put the academic piece and the athletic piece together when I was in high school. My coach, Brock Mitchell, really a big deal in my progression. When I got to UC Irvine, which is where I ended up winning both of those national championships, our head coach and all of the assistant coaches for my 2 seasons. So I ended up having 2 different head coaches, John Sparrow and Dave Niffen, and a couple different assistant coaches from Mark Prescio to Eddie Rapp to Michelle Barch and Andrea Becker. All these people played such a huge role into the mentality that we took onto the court. But the person who I really highlight who never gets enough credit for our success was our strength coach, Mike Nagler. I'll never forget being in the weight room, and the way that he approached our strength training was never in a degrading way, never in a way that made you feel like you weren't good enough, but the standard was set so high. Like, you're not going to sit down in the weight room. You can do that weight. It doesn't matter if it's Monday, you're going to come in here and work this way. If you're late, you have 50 burpees. Like, having a system and having an expectation really lifted the level of competition within our group. And as soon as our group started to take that on and run with it, it became like almost fun, to compete at a really high level. So being able to have the competitive mentality, for some people it comes naturally, for some people it doesn't. But if you can put yourself in an environment where there's other competitive people around you, I always believe there's room to be able to pursue championships.
So it's more about like putting yourself in a position where you have to push yourself, where you're not necessarily the best one in the room. You have people better than you, and you gotta like reach that level specifically.
Yeah, in a team sport for sure. Like, I haven't experienced playing golf or tennis or bowling at a high level, but playing a team sport for a good portion of my life, like what I have really found is individual success is important to being successful. However, individual success never ever comes above like what a team is able to do as a whole. I would much rather have 6 people on a volleyball court who are 70 out of 100% talent, who all understand work ethic, who all understand working together, than have 2 players who are 95 or 100% talent, and then a couple other 70% players, if those 2 are not understanding of how to ingratiate the rest of the group.
No, definitely. And it's really interesting that you bring that up, because recently, me and like a bunch of our friends, we started like a community league, it's a rec league. Nobody's like a D1, D2, D3. Like, we're not that level. We just play for fun. If you probably see our game, you will be like, oh, these guys don't know how to play volleyball. Like, that's how the games are going to be. But recently we got these 2 players who apparently played back home, played some level of professional college. Maybe they didn't play college, I haven't talked to them in detail much, but they're like the all-stars of our team.
Sure.
Now we had like one of our preseason games recently, and of course they're being the all-stars. Now the whole team's mindset is that, okay, we don't want them to be carrying the team. We don't want it to be like those 2 guys, they come, they play a good game, and they see how bad everyone is. That's gonna be like, okay, we're not cut off for this, So the whole team mindset at that point, as you just mentioned, is that everyone was in the mindset, okay, we got to support each other as a team. Those 2 players, they might be out in the rotation, they might be in the back, but we're still able to get points, So that's really a key role for the entire team to come together.
Yeah, definitely. No, you hit it spot on. I think when it comes to athletic performance improving, when it comes to sustainability, you being able to have a really good system is really important. And often a really good system comes from buy-in from the group. Like the more the group can buy in, the easier it becomes for individuals within the group to continue to push and continue to build. I've seen like a lot of people and a lot of teams end up going downhill or even starting well and then having a dive because there's one or two people really trying to hold up the ship, and
Sure.
it becomes really exhausting for them. So either you're going to have to get yourself in an environment where you can affect winning, as in like creating an environment of leadership, an environment of buy-in, or you're going to have to be the person who may exhaust yourself in being able to hold up the sinking ship, which I've also seen, some success.
Absolutely. And if you talk about athletes like LeBron, Kobe, Steph Curry, like how they're like the elites of their teams, but they've pushed. And I don't know if you watched The Last Dance, Michael Jordan,
Yeah,
how he like him being the all-star impacted on how well the team performed.
for
That's
sure.
absolutely one of like a key factor of being an athlete. Now, I wanted to ask you, were you athletic growing up, or is this something that you developed over the year? And with
Yeah,
that aspect, how does fitness in volleyball and other sports, because you even played some basketball, how does that differ and how does that come into play?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, looking back, I probably thought that I had some level of athleticism, but as I ultimately look back on it in my experiences, the way that I was picked or not necessarily picked for teams and having tried out for youth teams, I don't think that I was that great of an athlete. I played youth soccer like most people do who end up playing sports later on, but I didn't necessarily excel beyond the youth years. And then I was getting cut from teams in middle school. So I literally did not play a club or school sport in middle school. It was like me playing at the park with my friend. And then once I got into high school, I played on the freshman team. I wasn't like the varsity freshman or even like the JV freshman. Freshman basketball, freshman volleyball. As a sophomore, JV basketball, and then volleyball, I started to take to a different level. But I think that having fitness in your life is something that I really push to people. Like, it does not matter your age, it does not matter your stage. Not all of us have the athleticism or the natural gifts of a LeBron James, and not all of us have, super duper terrible and inferior gifts. Like, some of us are right in the middle, some of us are on the low end, some of us are on the high end. But if we put fitness in our life, I guarantee it's going to increase happiness. It's going to increase productivity. It's going to increase like your motivation towards the other things you do if you just add in workouts. So that's like the biggest message that I really try to push out to people is whether you're like the elite athlete or you're the average athlete or you're not an athlete, being able to add fitness into your life will be the game changer.
Now, how does that fall into like volleyball versus basketball, for example, right? It's a different sport when it comes to the fitness aspect of it. Is it similar? Is it different? And how do you usually like go about when it comes to like some key elements while staying fit and being able to perform specifically for volleyball? Again, because the whole dynamic is so different from every other sport.
Yeah, good question. So basketball is just so much cardio, has to be in there, and you have to be strong as well. So I'm always impressed with basketball athletes because they develop this ability to be strong and be cardiovascularly fit as well. Where, if I'm being honest, being a good volleyball player has a lot to do with short-term power. It's like, can you create powerful movements in a 8-second span, in a 9-second span? Because the average volleyball rally lasts about 7 to 8 seconds. It's
Hmm.
not very long. So for a rally to go on for 30 seconds, you'll often see volleyball players like literally huffing and puffing after the rally, where for a basketball player, they're at
So it's
least
all like up and
not.
down, up and down. Yep.
So in volleyball, I try my best not to compare, sport to sport, like what's harder, what's easier, whatever the case. But having played both, what I do experience in volleyball is to be successful in volleyball, it is a mental challenge. Like, people will have such a roller coaster game because the score resets, after every set. That's different from
Sure.
basketball, where obviously you see momentum swings in basketball and you see the score shift a little bit, but ultimately you still come out of a quarter getting to hang on to what you did previously. Where volleyball, you could beat a team 25-2 or 25-23. Ultimately, when the next set starts, it's 0-0. Like, so being able to have the mental stamina to remember a game plan, to be able to make adjustments, to be able to shift. That is in both sports. But volleyball, you end up paying the price so much more if you're not able to reset. Or basketball, you get to have a little bit of a handicap or lack thereof from what you did previously.
And would you say, I mean, again, we talked about team sport, but would you say an individual player's fitness or athleticism plays a role more in basketball or in volleyball, or they're
That's a
just
good question. That's a
both?
good question. I think basketball teams I've seen lose success so quickly if there's one or two weak links. Like I've literally at every level, from the youth level, high school, college, pro, I've seen teams who have pretty good players lose because one or two players are not fit or are not strong enough or not understanding enough of the system. And vice versa. I've also seen teams win because they have one player who's just so dominant and so in control. But volleyball wise, especially indoor volleyball, I do notice that there's an ability to be able to hide people.
Hmm.
Like one, two, or three players in volleyball really can make the difference, even at a high level. Where in basketball, if you don't have the consistency of if you don't have the consistency of a full team or a full rotation, you're eventually going to lose likely, especially if you're playing more than one game. Because basketball, like I said, the cardio, it's up and down.
Sure.
People don't often play the whole game. And if they do, they're probably not going to play the whole game the next game. Volleyball, people are almost expected to play the whole game. Your best player is supposed to play the whole game, right?
Yeah, I mean, in volleyball, that I've noticed as well is that even again with the rec league, I can kind of relate to that. Is that there are some weak links, but then there's the key players that are able to like cover the areas, so they like make up for the difference, and of course they win with that difference. It's really
Right.
interesting perspective that you put out there for us. Now, for someone who's again, like someone who's not an athlete, someone who's just starting to get into it, and someone like playing volleyball without, for example, someone like our like, and you've seen this around too, like in a rec leagues, right? You'll see people like having injuries, doing this and that, not the right form.
Yeah.
Where do you think should the core focus be when training for a volleyball game, or with that in mind?
Good question. So the first two things that I would think about are the ability to land on 2 feet. For me, the most two common injuries in volleyball are shoulder tears from people the way they swing and ankle rolls from the way that people land. So having the ability to be able to land on 2 feet, which takes balance before you jump, as well as balance when you land. And then secondarily, a lot of core stability. So core is in all sports, but in volleyball, there's so many direction changes. There's so many lateral movements. There's so many forward to back, up to down. Like, so to have core stability is most important to be able to maintain your health. Where the people who I see get injured the most frequently, there's an instability in the core.
Sure. And you would say that this is all across, or like based on the positions? Because I know hitters take the most toll, right?
Yeah,
Then you have
that's a
setters,
good
and you
question. I would say all across because setters and liberos don't end up with as many shoulder tears as hitters, middle hitters and outside hitters and right side hitters. But ultimately, I've seen ankle rolls in every position because of a lack of balance when people
mm,
block or when they jump. And if you have people who are spending their time, getting really big biceps or spending their time like trying to really have their quads be built up, those people end up having not all the time, but a lot of times they end up having injuries as well because of the load on their body. Volleyball is a sport where you're jumping almost every other play.
sure.
So for you to not have equilibrium within your body in terms of the areas that get hit, if you're top heavy, if you're bottom heavy, like that load ends up being your downfall in the long run is what I've seen.
Absolutely. That's a very interesting perspective, but there, because I was always under the assumption that the hitters would be the more prone to injury, but now that you said that pretty much all across,
Yeah.
well, fitness, I guess, plays a huge role in when it comes. Now,
Yeah.
I know, Chris, that you've been in both the sides of the, I would say, well, both the sides of the sideline. You've been a player, and now you're in a position of being a coach. What are
Yes.
some mistakes that you see when you were as a player and now you're seeing as a coach? Like, how has the perspective shift been
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. When I've been an indoor player,
Indoor.
the largest thing that I take away from playing indoor as a player is having a consistency with the way you approach your warm up and the way you approach your preparation. So when I was a player, again, when I got to UC Irvine, I began to have a very good consistency with preparation. There was a warm up, it was exact, it was precise. Before that, there's days where you go, oh, I don't have time to warm up. I'm just going to pop in and get it going. Oh, I don't have time to stretch. I'm just going to pop out. Like, I don't need to finish all the sets of this lift, or I'm going to do more sets on this lift. Things are very randomized. And when things are randomized, the results become more random. So when you have a structure, you know, as a coach, which I do, like as a coach, I have itineraries, you know, that go out. I have very clear plans, and it's a reason that I've been able to build the things I do business wise so well and so quickly, is people understand like there's a structure to the things that are happening. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, whether you're a coach or whether you're a player or whether you're a player who wants to be a coach. Having a system and having structure is crucial to being successful. If you want to be successful and have consistency, then people should feel like there is a system in place.
And what are some of the common mistakes that you you maybe didn't see when you were as an indoor player, but now as a coach, you're like, oh, this is what I need to fix. Like this is what now the players upcoming should do.
Yeah, thinking that people are wrong when they say games are won by serving and passing, or thinking that there's loopholes to like the old sayings. Like the thing I think about so much is that old saying about the way the tortoise beats the hare, essentially, you know, like slow and steady wins the race. And I used to think like, that's not real. No, in real life, the fastest person went. But the older I've gotten and the more that I've watched the sport, I go, no, the people who take their time, their percentages are way higher in the long run. Like, it's not to say they can't be beat, or it's not to say that sometimes you don't get ramped or just outran, but people who take their time are the ones who end up having, you know, the majority of the success. So being able to do things right, like to cut once, measure 10 times and cut once, rather than, you know, measure once and cut 10 times. Like those concepts, those are the mistakes as a youth, just like trying to rush stuff or trying to not spend the time into getting things correct.
Absolutely. So patience is a key factor. And I think across all sports, and me personally, I can relate to this because I've been injured a lot over the years. I've had ACL issues, meniscus issues, and because my primary sport is soccer, I, again, like you just mentioned, until probably like 3 or 4 years ago, I would not have considered myself any kind of athlete at all. I was like 200 pounds overweight. I had a whole transformation. I lost weight. I started getting into fitness, and then I switched my complete workout routine into like more of an athletic type of workouts. And now I realize that, it's more about being patient. I can be the best jumper. I can be the best runner. But if I'm not taking time to understand what the game is about or what my body is able to do, I'm never going to have the success. I'm never going to have the 100% rate that I'm looking for. So that's definitely a good perspective that you put in there. Right. Now, some things that you've seen over the year when it comes to health and fitness, and even in general, like just the game itself, what are your avenues, or what is a route for someone to start and get better at the sport, volleyball specifically?
Yeah. Right now, I call it a challenging time because there's not very many people who are super successful without having a private trainer. That's just like the area that we've entered when it comes to sports. The old like go play pickup and you'll get good, unfortunately, is starting to go more and more away. But my top 3 things that I would say to people are: 1, commit to it. So when I say commit, I mean play often. Like there's people who think they're going to get good by playing like twice a week. That's not a thing. Like whether you're a youth, whether you're an adult, you have to commit to it. You have to play often. You have to play even when you don't think you have time. You have to play even when you think you don't feel like it. Like you have to commit to it. The second thing would be make sure that you keep your focuses small. So come in, I want to get better today at these 2 things. Do not try to chase the cat and go 16 things I'm going to try to improve at, because you'll slow yourself down. So being very deliberate in the things you want to improve on. And then the last thing is working on your mentality. So there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the strength, spend a lot of time on the ball, spend a lot of time with the ball, but there's not a lot of people who I see who spend a lot of time on their mentality, or that is at least not enough. So to be able to be successful has so much to do with the way you think, the way you speak to yourself, things you believe. And that's what my career has shown me. It's like there'll be times where I'm in really average shape to bad shape, but I believe things mentally, so it'll work out for me if things get close. And there's times where I've been in, really good shape, and this is more in the past, but there were times I've been in really good shape and decided that mentally I wasn't going to have that same like fervor, that same toughness, or whatever the case, and things did not go well. So fortunately, those lessons came quick for me.
And how would you say that I mean, again, we're talking about mindset a lot. That's a perspective that people need to put in, like work on it, like while they to excel or to do anything. Have you over your career, even now playing transition to sand volleyball, have you had any drastic injury that you had to struggle, and how did you come back from it, if so?
Yeah, so I actually my first professional season in Finland, I ended up dislocating my ankle in the fourth match of the season, and that was really challenging for me. I was in a really cold place, didn't have friends, was out on contract, didn't speak the language yet, and I was pretty unsure of what to do. So, in hindsight, I probably came back a little bit too fast. I did not take the time to really get my injury diagnosed and do the rehab. I just wanted to get back and play so quickly. So now I have to kind of go backwards and do a lot of that work that I should have done then, like 3 times over. So that ankle dislocation was really a test for me mentally, physically. Like I wasn't able to jump as high. I wasn't able to run as fast. I wasn't as equal on my left leg as my right leg. And so being able to get beyond that psychologically, that's again where I talk about the mental piece. Like there's a lot of people who I work with now from a physical space and from a mental space. And the largest thing I would probably say that we talk about is confidence and
Mm.
how confidence works and how to achieve confidence. So, so much that I ended up writing a book about it. So
Wow.
now that's such my primary focus with what I do and what I teach is like being able to have confidence will get you to a point where you just don't worry. You don't avoid, you don't make excuses based on what happened previously. You just trust.
That's amazing. Now, it's interesting you bring that up. Now, I want to ask you this. Where, from your experience, where do you draw the line between confidence and being overconfident?
Yes, good question. So I have a saying, the only difference to me between confident and cocky is what you say out loud.
Mm,
So I am a believer that the people who are the most successful in the world at what they do, they believe that they're the best. Like
sure.
there's not this kink in the armor of a LeBron James at the highest level who's like, well, I'm up there. No, for him to
Yeah,
dominate the way he does, he's like, I'm the best and it's not close. Like for
sure.
Muhammad Ali to do what he did, I'm the best and it's not
Of course.
close. Serena Williams, all these people. So where the word cocky comes in, obviously it's very subjective. Like people can say what they want. But my opinion is it's just about what you say out loud. Those people who have the best kind of confidence, they just utilize their body. They show. They don't speak a whole lot unless they're asked. Now, if somebody's asked, I don't think it's wrong for them to tell the
Sure.
truth, state their opinion. If somebody says like, "Where do you think you rank among the all-time?" and somebody says, "I think I'm number one." I don't think that's cocky. They were asked, but for you to come out unsolicited and say, "I'm number one, I'm the best," like I lean more towards like, well, nobody asked, and just prove it. Like let the fans be the judge.
Sure.
Let the people who are critics be the judge. Like if you really feel like you're the best, you shouldn't have to say it out loud. That's my personal opinion, unless you're asked.
Absolutely.
The way that I would gauge it is like that. Like it's whatever you say out loud.
Absolutely. And now, I mean, that's again, we're talking about sports right now. How does that portray for you as an athlete when it comes to health and fitness? When you're in the gym, when you're looking at your diet, when you're looking at the food, like what is like including that, like what is one of the most crucial things collectively for someone to be better at the sport? Diet, nutrition, health and fitness.
Yeah, for somebody to be collectively better at their sport, my order is mentality number one. Second is commitment to the training, and then third would be essentially how they take care of their body. So I am at a point where I believe food is more important than even strength and the speed pieces. I'm not always great about how I eat. That's like the reality to what I would tell any like fans of mine or any people who see me. Like I'd be lying if I said I'm
Sure.
great about the eating part. But what I am really good about is I make sure I get these workouts in. Like if I'm not eating great, you're not going to see me like miss a workout for a week. If I'm not eating great, you're not really going to see me be average mentally. Like for me, I've made a decision in my own life of what level I want to be at. The level I want to be at when I compete now is I want to have the opportunity to win the tournament. And for me, that is I have to be mentally tough. I have to be prepared enough physically, and then I have to be mindful of the eating piece when it's time. For me, I have different timelines based on the tournament. When I coach, so when I'm more so in charge of athletes or humans or uh, businesses, anything like that, they have a program and it's made very clear to them of what periods and times things are important. What periods of time is our fitness going to be on point, and what periods are we just maintaining? What periods of time does eating really matter, and what periods of time can you do whatever? But mentality is something you have to work on all the time, in my opinion. It's something you can't pick and choose when you're going to try to work at it, because it's the hardest thing to be mindful of when things get challenging. When things get
Absolutely.
challenging, you can be mindful of if you need to move left or right, or if somebody's beating you short or deep or whatever. But when things get challenging, you're rarely sitting there mentally like in control, like, no, I know what's going on. I know how I'm feeling. I know what I'm doing. It's like things start to speed up. So to be able to slow the game back down, that comes from between your ears.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the major key takeaways from the discussion that we're having is literally mindset before everything, and
Yeah.
mindset before anything, before you even think about starting the sport. Now, how has that transition for you? I know you played indoor, now you switched to sand. Is your routine, your workouts, your nutrition is pretty similar, and your mindset, or has that changed since, it's a whole new scenario, sort
That's
of?
a good question. It has changed actually. Like sand volleyball, I'm learning this every month that passes. It's such a different game than
Mm.
indoor volleyball. Like the way you approach it is different. The strategy is different. The feel is different. The technique in a lot of ways is different. And so when I was going about it a little bit more naive and was thinking like, oh, it's not that different. Like I'm just gonna play sand how I play indoor. Like
Mm.
things were so. But when I really started to have more success, not that I've been as successful as I will ultimately finish, but when I've started to have more success was when I realized and treated it as a separate sport. I humbled myself momentarily and said, I'm going to treat this brand new. I'm going to treat it like I've never played, and I'm going to go back and learn some of the basics, and I'll be willing to learn from anybody who I feel knows what they're talking about, older, younger, whatever. And from there, I started to be able to build more versus when I thought like I knew a thing or two because I've played indoor, like,
Wow.
yeah, not going at it with the same mentality. Coming out of indoor, when I was finishing college, you start to feel like, okay, I'm in the top 10% of players in the United States. I could play pro volleyball. I can do things that other people, only dream of.
Sure.
And coming back to sand, like I tried to come in with that same mentality of like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna switch. And you're getting beat by 50-year-old people and 14-year-old kids, and you're like, okay, I need to take a step back here and figure out what's going to work best. And what worked best was starting over and being able to learn it from the ground up.
Well, that's impressive that you actually said that you treat it as a completely different sport. People think that, oh, it's the same thing. It's just volleyball here and
Yeah.
there, but that's
Yeah.
really interesting perspective so that you had there. Now, some of your over the years, again, you've been an indoor player, now you're a coach, now you're still, doing your sand volleyball career as well. What are some tips and recommendations you give when it comes to health and fitness with someone, of course, who's putting in time to get better at the sport?
Yeah. So the top three things that I would say are takeaways for people health and fitness wise are work out every week. I would say that like try not to have randomized planning, but if you could work out every week, it depends on who you are. There's some people who should work out 5 times a week. There's some people who should work out twice a week. Like schedule does depend. What your goals are does depend, but work out every week. Having workouts in your life will make you more happy. It'll make you more productive. It'll make you more successful. Second thing would be make sure you're mindful of calorie intake. That does
Mm.
not mean that you have to eat the cleanest ever. It does not mean that you have to count your calories per se. Just being mindful that however many calories you're burning with athletics, that's like more or less how many calories you should be eating.
Sure.
Like it's just math. Like if you're eating more calories than you are burning,
Gonna
calories
put
are going to
on.
stay with you. So even if you have a great metabolism, eventually it's likely to catch up with you. So it just depends on your goals. If you want to be fit, if you want to be fast, if you want to be strong, be mindful of calorie intake. The last thing would be take sleep seriously.
Mm.
Like I again would not be telling the truth if I said that I sleep 8 hours a night every night. It's not a reality for me. However, it aligns with my goals, what I want for myself. Right now, I am not currently competing to play at the Olympics. If I were competing to play at the Olympics, I would be sleeping 8 hours or more every single night. I would be doing therapy massages every day. I would be stretching before and after my practices. Right now, the things that matter to me personally are I want to feel athletic. So that is subjective for me. It's a feeling. I want to feel like I have the ability to be able to win tournaments. So tournament by tournament, I prepare based on what's coming in front of me. And finally, I want to have the habit in myself of working out. So I don't want to go a week without working out. I don't want to feel like it's really hard for me to go back to the weight room or go back to the gym or my facility. I want to feel like working out is a routine and is a rhythm for me. And so that works.
Absolutely. And I know this is going to be a subjective question as well, but what is your one recommended or your favorite workout when it comes to,
Yeah.
getting volleyball power and something that's not going to like restrict you from moving the way you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer with two because I really like core stuff. So I will just generalize for my first answer core, but for the people who are listening, I don't want to be that boring and just say core. So probably one of my favorite workouts is definitely the clean. Like for me, it's been such a challenging workout. Like when I was in college, I couldn't really get the technique of lifting the bar without using my arms, and I wasn't able to do a lot of weight in comparison to my teammates. But what I will say is anytime we were doing cleans, that's when I felt my most explosive. That's when I felt like I could jump the highest and for the longest period of time. So either cleans or hang cleans would be my favorite workout.
Awesome. And I mean, I can attest to that as well. Like they are really hard to get the form off first, even with just the barbell. Once you
Yeah,
get a hold of it, it just changing the way it challenges your body.
for
And just
sure.
one last final question for you, Chris, before I let you go is one person, dead or alive, that you would want to train with, or maybe even play a recreational volleyball with or sport with.
Jeez, yeah, okay. Somebody who I would like to play with, who I have not yet, is Karch Garai. So
Okay.
I've played against Phil Dahlhauser on a few occasions. That was a really good experience. I've played with against Olympians like Ricardo Santos and Sean Rosenthal,
Wow.
like really good players on the indoor scene. I trained with the U.S. national team for a little while, so most of the guys who've been to the Olympics I've played with or against. But for me, the one guy who I just really want like the live feel of what it's like is Karch Garai. Like I've seen him play, and I've been around him. He's actually in an interview at UC Irvine when we were switching our coaching staff that next year, and we say hi to each other, at the American Sports Center. But it'd be an awesome experience to be able to actually play with or against him in his prime. That would have
That's
been fun.
pretty sweet. And one person, dead or alive, that you would want to train with, regardless of the sport, could be a bodybuilder, basketball player,
Okay. Okay.
anyone that you were like, hey, I want to just work
That
out
one.
with this guy.
I'm gonna have to sift it real quick in my mind. So I'm gonna tell everybody so they know my thought process. My top five that I'm thinking are Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods. Um, I don't want to reach too far. So those three come to mind. Oh, Muhammad
Awesome.
Ali. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably those four. And if I had to number that down, I think just Michael Jordan. Like I want to know the way that people tell the stories, the intensity. Like I'm listening to this thing about Kwame Brown right now. Not to date this podcast,
Yeah.
but the back and forth Stephen A. Smith, Kwame Brown, and I was listening last night and they said Michael Jordan ruined Kwame Brown because of his intensity. And when he was playing on the same team as him when he first came in the league, he was saying this and saying that. And I would just be so interested to be a fly on the wall. The way people talk about his intensity
Yeah.
and the way people talk about the way he went about practices, which is totally not our generation right now, right? Like
Of
people are
course.
in load management and resting the
It's a
body
lot
and
more sensitivity right now with people.
but man, like I can just feel it when I watch things like The Last Dance, or if I go back and look at videos, like even beyond like a Kobe Bryant, it feels like such another level. So that'd be the person for me.
Awesome. That's really cool, Chris. Thank you so much. Again, before I let you go, just quick thing for the audience. They can find you on Instagram, Chris P. Austin. You want to talk a little bit about your training program, who it's for, and how people can get started with you if they're interested.
Yeah. So anybody checking this out, like you said, Chris P. Austin is my name on most social media. So Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. Right now, I'm spending the majority of my time starting to spread out, working with businesses a lot on how to build their business, their financial plans, building confidence coaching in their team. So that's like my number one thing. So if you want to contact me, Chris at chrispaustin.com. My team and I can get set up to fly to where you are. You guys can fly to where we are. We can get it set up.
Okay, awesome. Again, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. Lovely discussion. Look forward to hopefully hosting you again.
No doubt. Appreciate you, my man. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Ciao.